Finesse lure techniques are a technique that I enjoy, whether fishing out of a kayak, out of a boat or off the shore. Those techniques are basically the same. And now that the drought has broken in Victoria, now is a great time to go and hit the Western Districts and fish your favourite destination.
Yeah, my favourite three approaches for trout fishing in the lakes in Victoria are top water, mid water and deeper water. The Strike Pro lure range is quite large and it covers all the applications from surface right down to deep water. For deep water applications, I love using the Strike Pro Cyber Vibe. When you find fish holding it in deep water on your sounder, this lure is a go-to lure, and as it works the same for bream anglers and estuarine anglers chasing jewfish and species like that, it is also exceptional on trout and redfin, yellow belly as well. Don't underrate these lures using these for trout, and again there's some great colours for targeting trout species.
We're fishing now actually with Strike Pro Cyber Vibes, which are a metal blade or vibe, and we're throwing this very close to the bank, letting it sink down. It's going to take around 2 minutes actually to get down to that depth, so of 20 to 25 metres where the fish are holding on the sounder. And all I'm doing is just occasionally I'll just give it a quick lift every sort of 20 seconds or so. One, just to make sure that the blade hasn't tangled or it hasn't weeded up. And two, if there's any fish in the area, just by that light little lift, it'll actually allow the fish to see the vibe, and they may take it on the drop if they're schooled up higher in the water column. But also it'll keep more direct contact with the blade. Position yourselves about there. There's a hit. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Yep, fish on. Just throwing that vibe against the bank. Not a big fish, but it's a start. So a little, it's actually a little redfin. Now the reddies that are in here, surprisingly, the big browns and that will feed on these little redfin. Great little introduced species, and he's just walloped that vibe as it sank down. And a great little fish, and we'll let him go. And off he goes.
For mid-water applications, the Galaxia Minnow is my go-to lure. This lure is a fantastic lure trolled. When you flatline troll this lure, this runs at around 4 metres. There's not many lures on the market that do this, and this is definitely a go-to lure for mid-water applications. It's available in a variety of colours, but it has some exceptional trout colours like this rainbow trout pattern I've got here.
Just working up along the Hosie's Rock section, and we just positioned ourselves about 150 metres off the shore, just where the water drops off. These lures will run nicely just along the edge of the drop off here. Hopefully we can find some trout and some salmon cruising these edges. Paddling along with the native watercraft here, and it's great. We're just working it just like riding a push bike, so it's nice and simple. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just getting that lure just to bounce nicely. The rod tip's just bouncing along nicely, so I know that lure's swimming freely. By that, it means it's not catching any weed or anything like that. If it starts bouncing odd erratically, well, that means it's going to be hitting the bottom. Good thing with this style of fishing too, it's a very relaxing type of fishing, particularly on daylight today. Not much wind, nice weather. So brick's probably about 8 or 9 degrees, but the sun's out, so it's keeping us nice and warm. Oh, yep, good fish too. Looks like not a bad fish.
Yeah, a little bit of weight there. And just been trolling the Galaxia Minnow in a rainbow colour.
All the fish seem to be very similar size at the moment. I'd say these are just freshly stocked fish. They haven't been in here too long. They're a little bit lean on, and all around that sort of same size, that 25, say, centimetre range. But again, yeah, very skinny fish.
Now I've been trolling a Galaxia Minnow around and just got a strike on a slow troll. And it looks like one of the stock salmon that are put here on a regular basis. And as you can see, They're coming along nicely, very healthy, and some great fishing from Hardbody.
Yeah, he really hit it hard. Yep, on again. Oh, dropped it. No, got him. Little fella, this one. Yep, yeah, just got a little fish on here. I'd say around 1 kilo. Little rainbow. I'll just cradle lift him, I think, into the boat rather than stick the net. It seems to be well hooked. One of the things that you should be aware of with trout too is if you're going to actually release the fish, you should always wet your hands because they do have a protective slime on them, and if you grab them with dry hands and you let them go, basically what will happen is you'll wipe that slime off them, and that gives them more of a chance of getting the disease, etc. Get the hooks out of him and we'll get him back in the water. Say a little salmon by the look of it. Good thing you've got to have rods that are a little bit longer in the yak, just for this reason, because they can get tied around the rudder, etc. Here's a nice little fish, very streamlined. Yeah, sleek salmon, great little jumper. Now I might just cradle lift that fish in. Sometimes lifting them upside down like this, that seems to settle them down. Hooks are worn right into this fish, so he really wanted that lure. A little Strike Pro Galaxia minnow, hooked right in the jaw. And he's really swallowed this down, so it's going to take a little bit of work to get this out. All 3 sets have gone in.
Now, one of my favourite lures for topwater applications is the flats minnow. A great lure, has a great vibrating, wobbling action on it. You can fish this basically as a cast retrieve lure or a trolled lure, but with a cast retrieve you can do a very vigorous rip retrieve where you rip it down for 1 metre or 2, pause it for a second or 2, and then repeat the process. And this is a dynamite lure when fishing those lakes at top water.
We're in a spot here where the lake comes up from 8 metres up into around 2 metres with interspread weed beds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fish slowly across these flats with a Strike Pro Flats minnow. This lure is a lure that's designed only to run just underneath the surface, around 2.5–3 feet down. So it'll be just above those weed beds. And this is using those conditions right to our advantage. It's overcast now, there's a wave action, there's areas of weed for those fish to hide. So we'll just pepper this area with our Hardbody, and hopefully a fish will come out of one of those weed beds and snaffle this lure. Let's get into it. Yeah, and that's what happens when you fish those flats in those conditions that are correct, like I was discussing before. Nice rainbow, hooked on a flats minnow, right across this shallow flat that we've got just behind us here. So there's that flats minnow that did the damage. Great bait fish imitation, and as I was explaining, fishing across these flats in these windy conditions and slow rolling and twitching this lure just above the weed beds, it will work for everyone. Very dark colours, so this fish is trying to spawn, but in this lake they can't spawn. Caught on a little Hardbody lure. Fantastic fish. We'll let this fish go. So this is a case of using the conditions to our advantage. What I'm going to do here is the wind's behind us, it's blowing down onto those shallow flats. I'm going to throw this flats minnow downwind so I can keep it far away from the yak, and that way the yak won't spook the fish. You can do the same when you're out of a boat as well. And then all I'm simply going to do is basically just pick up the slack on this reel, a couple of twitches of the rod tip around 5 to 6 inches, then pause it for a second or 2. And then another vigorous one or 2 twitches around that 5 or 6 inch mark. And if you do this, I can pretty much guarantee you'll get a fish. Yeah, I've hooked a good fish here. Oh, really good fish. Oh. It's right up on the surface. Really good fish. Oh, he's going behind me, making it very difficult out of the yak. Pretty hard in these waves. He's right up on the surface. That lure's pinned right in the side of his jaw, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Oh, what a great fish that is. You've got to be happy with that. Cracking fish. Have to be at least 2 kilo, that fish. Really fat, well-conditioned brown. Caught on a Strike Pro Flats minnow. You've got to be happy with that. Real feisty fish, beautiful brown. How's that for a fish? Now that the drought's broken in the Victorian waterways and all the lakes are full, now's the time to go and hit the water. And you too can catch a fish like this, and we'll let this fella go.
The beauty of fishing lures is that you get to cover a lot more water and you have a greater opportunity of catching fish because of the ground that you're covering. The scenery you get to see is fantastic at the same time, and it's a very relaxing way of fishing.
As editor of Yak Fisher magazine, I get to see a lot of kayaks. Today I've got the native watercraft Mariner 12.5. I'll take you through the features and a bit of a run test as well to see how it performs out in the water. Now let's take a quick look at this propel system. By unhitching the bungee cord at the base here, you can grab the handle and pull the propel straight out. By replacing the plastic insert and the bungee, the propel system is now ready to be launched. You can travel out through some shallow water, weedy bends and not damage your prop at all. Starting at the bow of the kayak, we've got a great large hatch which will enable storage inside the hull. It can be for clothing, fishing gear, quite easily packs away and then locks away. Another great feature with this Mariner kayak is its mounting system. The kayak's been moulded to allow for these metal plates to be inserted as well. These metal plates will hold rail systems that will enable you to put native watercraft accessories onto your kayak. As we move down the kayak, the native watercraft kayaks are set up so you can attach all of their components and accessories to the kayak. As you can see here, this side plate mounts very, very easily just with a screw there. Tighten it up, and on this you can attach Scotty rod holders, fish finders and anything else you might need as well. This kayak utilises a rudder system which is controlled by two cables which lead to this lever here. It's a matter of just pulling it up to turn left, pushing it back down to turn right and keeping it straight up and down to keep yourself tracking straight. The revolutionary propel system works on a 10-to-1 drive ratio. This offers a good, steady speed with very little effort at all. To finish it off, we've got two flush mount Scotty rod holders at the rear and a small hatch for keeping some personal things dry. Now I've talked to you about the propel drive system. One thing I haven't mentioned though is the fact that this propel system also works in reverse. So whether it's to drag a fish out of some snags or to work your way through some tight situations, the propel drive system works extremely well. Mainly due to its uniquely shaped hull, the Mariner offers great stability. So much so, you can feel free to stand up at any stage, grab your favourite lure or soft plastic and have a cast and a fish. Yeah, he's on! Can you believe that? Here we go. Now he's trying to get me up around the weeds, which is not uncommon for these, and there he goes, a nice rainbow.
It's Bill Klassen here from The Fishing Show, and if you like this instructional video and want to learn more, it's simple. Go to fishingshowtv.com.au and see a whole host of additional videos.